Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Fontanilla. Thank you for being here and listening to my project for Biology 316. Okay, let's begin. So, my project for Biology 316 is about breast cancer and nutrition in particular, and I hope you guys would like it. So, a little bit of pathophysiology regarding breast cancer. So, overall 5 year, there's about a relative survival of 88% in women. So that's very good. And as we learn in this class, breast cancer can metastasize in several parts of the body, such as lungs, liver, bone, brain, and skin. There are a couple of causes of cancer. It can be hereditary. About 5 to 10% of breast cancer is hereditary. And unfortunately, if somebody had breast cancer and it is hereditary, there's a pretty good chance that they are also at risk of having ovarian cancer. And that's due to mutation of two specific genes, such as the BRCA1 and BRCA2. And we learn in this class that both of those genes are necessary for DNA repair pathway and also protecting against mutations. There's also a hormonal uh, cancer, and basically what it is that the risk increases with exposure with estrogen. So basically, if if somebody, let's say in their 50s, let's say 55, they're still having their period, that means that they are exposed to estrogen longer than people who have their menopause at the age of, let's say, 48 or 49. So basically, this type of cancer is hormone sensitive, meaning that they express estrogen receptors and proliferate in response to estrogen stimulation. So a little bit of a hypothesis for my presentation. Individuals with breast cancer can experience an improvement with their quality of life with proper nutrition, exercise, and maintain healthy diet and weight. So let's talk about nutrition for a little bit. So overall, about 20 diet account for 25% of any type of cancer. So whether you have, let's say, colon cancer, um, let's say maybe prostate cancer, lung cancer. So diet account for about 25% of them. So that's about of um, one fourth of uh, of a risk. So the good thing about nutrition is that it's a modifiable risk factor. And according to a study that I've read in my articles, they had about 31 case control studies and 14 cohort studies that showed how nutrition can really affect um, us when it comes to having cancer. For example, carbohydrates. Too much carbohydrates will cause deposit of fatty tissue, which in return uh, increases estrogen. Also, it also showed that a little fatty tissue can be used to have estrogen deposit on those on those fatty tissues. And of course, too much carbohydrates increases not only your weight but also increases carcinogenesis and reduction on apoptosis. Also, in regards to nutrition, increased saturated and unsaturated fats in our diet will increase our likelihood of having cancer by 13%. So that's pretty big. 2.5 times risk reduction with decrease of fat consumption by 50%. So basically, if you decrease the amount of fat that you're eating in your diet, most likely your likelihood of having cancer will be reduced by 2.5 times. So that's pretty big. Also, fiber. Fiber can be found in fruits and vegetables, and we all know that. And fiber is very good because if you have fiber included in your diet on an everyday basis, there's a reduction of at least 34%. So that's very good. That's about 1/3 reduction right there. And that's because it increases insulin sensitivity and decreases weight gain. And also it decreases your exposure on estrogen. That's because of that, and there's a reduction of enterohepatic circulation of steroids. So let's talk about alcohol a little bit. So alcohol, we all know there's bad things about alcohol, and when it regards to cancer, according to the meta-analysis that I found, in every, let's say, 10 grams of alcohol, it increases your likelihood of developing cancer by 7%. And that's because alcohol contributes to weight gain, and it increases the recurrence of cancer for postmenopausal women. The metabolites that they can be found in alcohol also increases the risk of carcinogenesis, and also alcohol mediates estrogen. So micronutrients, there's a couple of micronutrients that I would like to talk about, and that's because they're very significant um, on reducing cancer. For example, calcium. If a person consume about 780 milligrams to 1,750 milligrams of calcium every day, that can reduce the risk by 19%. And also vitamin D that can be found in dairy products, milk or cheese or something. Not only is good for bone health, but also there's a 45% reduction of developing breast cancer and any type of cancer. So let's talk about nutrition recommendation. Lean, red, and white meats, fish or vegetarian sources of protein such as nuts and legumes, not only will maintain muscle strength and endurance, but you can also find vitamin B12 in them, which protects your DNA, which means not only there's DNA repair, but there's also DNA prevention of mutation. And let's say you already have cancer, not to worry because you can prevent or decrease the amount of fatigue that you're experiencing by eating lean meat and iron. And for cancer patients or just people in general, I mean, uh, fatigue is uh, is not a good thing because it makes them feel like they're not really part of the care, or they're more prone to having some kind of depression because they feel like, oh, they're weak. So if they're eating enough lean meat and iron and just enough protein and vitamin B12, it increases their energy. So they're more motivated to do things for themselves, and not only activities for themselves, but also in their own care as well. They're more likely to go to their follow-up visits and everything. And also, lean lean red and white meats, and also increases their cognitive function and resistance to infection. So let's talk about omega-3 and fatty acids. I think this is very interesting when I read this article because it talks about the importance of omega-3 and fish oil. So, cachexia is very common for patients who has cancer, and even if they don't know that they have cancer yet, a lot of them experience, weakness and everything and weight loss. So cachexia is a weight loss, anorexia, asthenia, and weakness. And the good thing about it is that it can be some of it can be reversible by just using omega-3 fatty acids. It can be reversed by 15 to 20%, which is quite significant, I think. And if they consume fish oil with a dose of 0.15 grams per kilogram per day and included in servings between 2 to 3, it actually has some really good benefits in it. For example, in the article that I found, the effects of fish oil can increase bone mineral density, decrease inflammatory cytokines, increase endothelial function, decrease depression, decrease tumor growth, and decrease VLDL synthesis. And okay, let's talk about a little bit of obesity and breast cancer. So we all know that exercise is very has a positive significance in preventing cancer. So what happens if they already have cancer, or what if they survive breast cancer? So in the article that I found, if they have a metabolic equivalent hours of 21, that's equivalent to about 7 hours per week of just brisk walking. That's a little bit of a not slow walk, but pretty fast walk. It can reduce their likelihood of recurrence by 41% after 3 years. So I think that's really huge. That's definitely very beneficial. Also, if they adhere to the physical recommended activity after cancer diagnosis, the reduction of the mortality rate is about 35%. Still, that's huge. That's still significant. Also, from the article that I've read, um, poor prognosis and higher recurrence on patients that have significant weight gain. And when I say significant, I would say in a 15 kilograms weight gain can increase your risk of recurrence by 13%. So it's very significant. It's important for people who has cancer, and also people who hasn't had cancer yet, and even people who survive cancer, to just maintain a healthy weight, diet, and exercise in order to prevent them from having recurrence in the future, or um, having it occurred in general if they haven't had any type of cancer. And these are my references. I used about five different references to do my presentation, do my research, and I really enjoyed reading every single one of them because I had family and friends who had cancer and who had breast cancer, and I thought, you know what? It's a beautiful thing for me to learn more for it and also share with everybody else what I know. Okay, thank you so much for listening to me, and I can't wait to watch everybody else's. Thank you so much, and have a good day.